Swami Japasiddhananda Ji Maharaj is the head of the Department of Sanskrit and Philosophy at RKM. He holds a MA in Sanskrit from the Karnataka State University and PhD in Sanskrit from Vishwabharati University, Shantiniketan. He has been serving as faculty in this department since 2013 and also the head since 2015. And Maharaj is a well accomplished researcher in his PhD topic is on Vakyapadiyam and the philosophy of the language, the grammar of a language, and it's very obscure subject as I heard from seniors. And Maharaj is an expert in grammar also, and he has taught us grammar and has been conducting several workshops in the department on various topics of the scriptures. So with these few words, I request Maharaj to start his talk. He will be talking on dimensions of pranayama from Vedanta, in Vedanta, today, on the 13th of June. Maharaj, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yathagnirdahi Shakti Ramakrishne Sthita Hiya Sarva Vidya Swarupantam Saradam Pranamatyaham. Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Good evening all. My pranams to the revered monks present here, and my best wishes and regards to Swami Japasiddhananda Maharaj, coordinator of the Department of Sports Science and Yoga at Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Educational and Research Institute, Vellore March. My good wishes to all scholars, faculty members, and students of Pranayama present here online. The topic of discourse for this evening is, as mentioned, dimensions of pranayama in Vedanta. There are three important words in the title, the topic: dimensions, pranayama, and Vedanta. Dimension or dimension means an aspect, way of looking at something, or the way of thinking about something. Pranayama is a Sanskrit word constituted of two component words combined into one, prana and ayama. The word prana is derived from the root anapranane. Prana is a word which familiarly means vital force or vital energy. But in Sanskrit literature, it has a wide range of meanings. Prana means vayu, wind, balam, strength, Brahma, the creator God, known in Vedanta also as Hiranyagarbha. Prana means linga shariram, the subtle body, and so on. In the context of pranayama, prana means that energy by which one lives. Praniti anena iti pranaha. Ayama is a word derived from the root yama uparame. There is a prefix a, therefore the meaning becomes extensiveness. Ayama means dairghya, extensiveness. Though prana is vital force, it has several functions. The vital energy in the human body, the system, the psychosomatic system, it has different functions. It is said in the Shastras Hridhi prano videpanas samano nabdhi samsthitah udanah kantha deshe syat dhyanas sarva shariragah anna praveshanam mutra dutsargona vipachanam bhashanadi nimeshadi tadyapara kramadami. Prana, when it functions as the intaking energy, the power, that energy which takes in anna praveshanam, prana, that is known as prana, egestion of the waste material from the body, that is apana, digestion and assimilation of food is performed by that mode of energy known as samana, and that is present in the stomach. Udana. Udana is that mode of vital energy which enables us to speak, to utter. It is present in the Kantha Desha. Then Vyana, the fifth one, the fifth mode. Nimeshadi, it is said. Blinking of the eyes, etc. are the functions of Vyana. So each of them have their own definitions. And what is pranayama as a whole, the word? We saw what is prana and what is ayama. And what is pranayama? Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it says, Baddha Padmasano Yogi Pranan Chandrena Puraye. Sitting in the lotus posture, the yogin should draw the prana through the left nostril. Dharayitva yatha shakti bhuya suryena rechaye. And having retained it as long as possible, should then exhale it through the right nostril. Pranam suryena chakrishya purayed udaram shanai. Inhaling the prana through the right nostril, the interior should be slowly filled with air. Vidhivat kumbhakam kritva punaschandrena vechayet. Performing kumbhaka as prescribed in the scriptures. It should then be exhaled through left nostril. Yena tyajet tena pitva dharayet atirodhataha. Air should be inhaled by the same nostril through which the exhalation was made. Rechayetcha tatonyena shanairevana vegataha. Then having retained the breath to the utmost, he uses the word, the Swatma Rama, who composed Hatha Yoga Pradipika, he uses the word atirodhataha. To utmost, what does it mean? Till the body is covered with perspiration or till the body shakes. Then it should be exhaled by other nostrils slowly and never fast. Shanaireva na vegataha. Because forceful exhalation will diminish the energy of the body. Jnanarnava is another scripture which is quoted in Vachaspatyam, a famous lexicon. It says, Kanishtikanamikangushthair yannasa kutadharanam pranayamas savidneyas tarjani madhyame vina. Yoga Sutra says, Tasmin sati shvasa prashvasayor gati vicheda pranayama. In the second pada, sadhana pada, 49th sutra, that asana having been perfected, that being perfected means when once the asana, the posture is perfected, it is stable. Regulation of the flow of shvasa inhalation and prashvasa exhalation is pranayama, breath control. There Vyasabhashya says, Sati asana jaye bahyasya vayoho achamanam shvasah kaushthyasya vayoho nissaranam prashvasah tayoho gati vichchedah ubhaya bhavah pranayam. Asana having been perfected, suspension of either of the processes of drawing in external air and exhaling internal air constitutes a pranayama. Thus, we have scriptures describing what pranayama is. In the Yoga Sutra, we also find one more in the very first pada, prachardhana vidaranam dhamba pranasya, etc. There are all the details that can be studied later. What is prana in Vedanta? The next term that we have in the title, the topic of today's discourse is Vedanta. What is Vedanta? Vedanta again is a compound word constituted of two component words, Veda and Anta. Veda means jnana. The scripture, the knowledge systems is known as the systems where knowledge is available is known as Veda. Vidanti anena iti Veda. Anta. Anta simply means end, or anta also can mean the inside of something. So if we take the meaning, the end, then Vedanta, as it is familiarly understood, it means the last part of the Vedas. But it has deeper meaning. Anta can be taken as the inside. Then it means the important seminal message of Veda. Vedanta means the seminal message of Veda. Anta also means conclusion. So, Vedanta means the important conclusions of the Vedas. Vedanta. The topic is dimensions of pranayama in Vedanta. Vedanta usually denotes the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra. Upanishads are many. The available ones are nearly 108. In some places, we also find 200, more than 200. That such a book also is available. But that number is not the ultimate count, because Upanishads are ultimately infinite. Veda Shakhas are infinite and Upanishads also are infinite. Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya commented on 10 important Upanishads, and they are considered as the main Upanishads, and the rest are often denoted as minor Upanishads. In almost all the main Upanishads, we find the mention of prana, though the meaning varies according to context. The word prana is mentioned in almost all the main Upanishads and many of the minor Upanishads also. What are the aspects of pranayama or dimensions that we can see in Vedanta? Vedanta presents the ultimate reality, the ultimate goal of human life, and so transcending the physical, intellectual aspects of personality is a must. And prana is, as we understand it, as the vital force. is related to the physical body and mind. Obviously, prana or pranayama has a secondary place in Vedanta. For the realization of the ultimate goal, which may be called as moksha, the sadhana means to that is jnana, as presented by Shankaracharya. But again, there are acharyas, great acharyas who are realized souls, who say that the means is bhakti, and many other options are presented. Swami Vivekananda said, all of these are means to liberation, moksha. They can be practiced together or singly or combining with one or two according to one's preference, one's constitution. So here in Vedanta, pranayama is a secondary means to liberation because it helps in strengthening the body as also purifying the whole system. Nadis or the channels of energy have to be purified first. That is achieved by many ways, and pranayama is one among them. In Vedanta, prana is spoken of as the ultimate reality also, Param Brahma. We find such mentions in Upanishads. For example, Chandogya Upanishad, in the first chapter, there is a conversation between one sacrificer, Prastota, and Ushasti. Ushasti is a jnani. Prastota approaches Ushasti and asks him about the Devata. Katama sa Devata, he asks. Here Devata means the existence absolute, Sat Swarupa Devata. When he asks that, Ushasti says, Prana iti vovacha, Prana iti vovacha sarvani hava imani bhutani pranam eva abhisamvishanti. Again, in the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, the 6th chapter is known as the Sadvidya chapter, where the Sadeva Somyeda Magra Asit, etc. is discussed. There also the Upanishad mentions Prana Bandhanam hi Somya Manaha. There a wonderful allegory is given. Sayatha Shakunis Sutrena Prabadho Disham Disham Patitva Anyatra Ayatanamalabdva Bandhanamevo Evameva Khalu Somya Tan Mano Disham Disham Patitva Anyatra Ayatanamalabdva Pranameva Upashrayate Pranabandhana Gumhi Somya Manaha iti. As a bird bound to a string, flying in all directions and failing to get an abode anywhere else, returns to the place of bondage alone. In this very way, indeed, that mind flying in all directions and failing to get an abode anywhere else, resorts to the vital force itself, for the mind is bound to the vital force. Here, Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya explains, the supreme deity is called as the vital force. The supreme deity that is spoken of in the 6th chapter of Chandogya as Sat, existence, is figuratively spoken of as Prana, which is the support of the totality of body and organs. Prana, as we understand as the vital force, is the totality of body and organs. But that is figuratively spoken of here. That means it refers to Param Brahma. Here we can recollect the example given by Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna has in simple words said, even as a bird, when a bird sitting on the post of a boat, a ship which is sailing on the seas, it sees everywhere it is water all around and wants to fly somewhere else. It tries and it finds no abode anywhere else and comes back to the post on which it was sitting in the ship. So that example here, it is discussed in Chandogya. Here prana is Param Brahma. Brihadaranyaka also says this. Athayam ashariro amritah prano brahmaiva. Brahmaiva, it is said. Then, on realization of the supreme reality, the self becomes ashariraha, disembodied, without any body, and immortal. It becomes the prana, supreme self, Brahman, the light. That is how it goes on. Elsewhere also, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that pranasya pranam uta chakshushash chakshuhu. There also, the first word the pranasya, it means of the vital force. Pranam means param brahman. Like this, we find that Upanishads speak of Brahman in the words prana, and such other words are used. But in the Brahma Sutra also, there is a sutra, Atayeva Pranaha. This we find in the very first chapter of Brahma Sutra. It means on that very ground, prana is Brahman. Earlier there was a discussion, so it says that on that very ground, prana is Brahman. Like this, the first dimension or the prominent dimension of pranayama, when we consider this prana, actually is Brahman itself. But in that case, ayama need not mean controlling of breath or extending the breath, nothing like that. Here it should be the realization of Brahman. But such a word is not used. Pranayama in this sense is not used. But prana here in Vedanta can also mean the ultimate reality. The familiar meaning of pranayama, which is meant in the yogic texts, that also is discussed in Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is the polemical portion of Vedanta, where the things are established with reasoning, with sharp reasoning. There it says, Apicha Samradhane Pratyakshanumanabhyam. This is another Brahma Sutra. Here, moreover, Brahman is realized in Samadhi, as is known from direct revelation and inference. Here, Samradhana, this word includes pranayama practice also. That is why we will consider what it means. Shankaracharya says, Apicha enam atmanam. Here, cha means two. Apicha means apitu. That is why it is moreover. Or whereas enam atmanam nirasta samasta, he says, nirasta samasta prapancham avyaktam samradhana kale pashyanti yoginaha samradhanancha bhakti dhyana pranidhanadhyanushtanam. Very nicely said. Acharya says, moreover, the yogins realize during samradhana, the self Brahman, which is free from the entire universe of phenomenal manifestation, prapancham, and is supersensuous. It is avyaktam. Samradhana, what does it mean? Acharya says, Samradhana bhakti dhyana pranidhanadi anushtanam. The act of devotion, contemplation, deep meditation, and such other practices There we find the word Adi, Pranidhanadi. By Adi, the Acharyas who explain Shankara Bhashya, who have written gloss on Shankara Bhashya, they say Japadi, Japa, Prarthana, Ityadi. And again, Adi means we have to include all these practices like Pranayama. Namaskara also is mentioned by one of the Acharyas. Because Sharanagati, Namaskara it denotes Sharanagati. Like that, all Japa, Namaskara, Ityadi have to be taken. By this, we find that Vedanta gives place for pranayama as a practice which will lead the aspirant for the state where he becomes eligible to grasp that Brahman or realize that Brahman. This is one of the aspects. The first one we saw that it is spoken of as Brahman itself, and there the pranayama word will not apply. But when it is taken as prana, the vital force, obviously pranayama means the practices by which the energy level in the system is increased and sustained for a very long time. Patayoga Pradipika in the second Upadesha, it says pranayama is necessary because once the prana is moving, the jivana also is moving, the life also is very shaky. So it has to be first stabilized. By stabilizing the prana, the life becomes stable. When the life is stable means the body becomes very, very strong. And we need a strong body for the purpose of realizing Brahman. Because at the state of realization, it is, as Ramakrishna says, this bhakti, bhava, etc. are all like a deluge. It is like a great wave, like a tsunami, which we call it nowadays. It will shatter the nervous system. Ramakrishna says this. So that is why Upanishads emphasize the strength so much. Taittiriya Shruti also says, Ashishto, Dridishto, Balishtaha. Mundaka Upanishad says, Nayamatma, Balahine, Nadaptaha. By this, we understand that pranayama has been given a rightful place in the Vedantic system of philosophy. And then one more aspect, one more dimension of pranayama, we may see, it is applied to day-to-day life. Whatever is performed can become a means to the ultimate goal of human life. This is the Vedantic scheme. The scheme of Vedanta will not exclude anything. The man who is doing some mean job in the eyes of common men. There is no job that is mean. That is the standpoint of Vedanta. But even in the common parlance, if someone says that it is a very mean job, Vedanta says that also can be a means to liberation. Seen from this standpoint, pranayama is very much a means which has been practiced by all the aspirants, yogins in some measure. At least Nadi Shuddhi is practiced by everyone. In the Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad says, prana is the principle, the tattva, by which everything is born, everything is sustained in, and in which everything dissolves into. Bhrigu, Varuni Bhrigu, he is the son of Varuna. He approaches his father and seeks the knowledge of Brahman. And the father says that whatever you are aware of at this present state of evolution, you consider that as Brahman. For without Brahman, there is no existence for anything in the world. He gives such an easy methodology. He says first, Annam Brahmeti Vyajana. And then again he comes and says that, now I have understood that Anna is Brahma. And then after some time he finds that once he evolves, he grows out, he outgrows that state, and then he realized that no, Anna cannot be Brahman. There is something subtler than this, which rules over the kingdom of food. Then the father doesn't say anything. He doesn't teach anything directly. Nowadays, the uh, educational psychology also speaks of this. They want to say that they want to remove the word teacher. They want to say the instructor. But nowadays they have come up with another word. They call it a facilitator. Whatever the word is, the system is the same and the scheme is same. The methodology is already worked out in the Upanishads. Anyhow, that's a different matter. So Varuna, he says that you go and perform tapasya, you meditate again, you contemplate and find out, you go deeper within yourself and find what the truth is. And the son, Varuni, is Shraddhavan, he goes again and meditates, comes up with the next realization, and he says, Pranan deva anuprananti manushya pashavashtaye prano hi bhuta namayuhu tasmaat sarvayushamuchyate. This was said by the father. And then he continues like this. Everything resides in prana, it goes against into prana, like this he says. So we can see that the senses act by following the vital forces in the mouth. All human beings and animals that are there act similarly. Since on the vital force depends the life of all creatures. Therefore, it is called the life of all. Those who worship the vital force as Brahman attain the full span of life. This is one important thing that we should understand. Considering prana as Brahman is not wrong, but that realization can yield fruits, yield the benefits of that state alone. Because prana, the vital force, belongs to the physical existence. We have to take the mind also, the psychosomatic system. So the realization of prana as Brahman can at best give only an accordingly the comment, it can only give the fruit that is, or the results will be limited to the body and mind. Then like this, he goes on and ultimately realizes that Brahman is beyond all body, mind, prana, indriya, everything. That is why in the Vedanta we see prana, the word prana is used to denote sense organs also. And again, we have the pranas also are mentioned there. There are 10 types of pranas, the 10 modes of functioning of the one vital force. Pancha prana we just now saw, and there are also upapranas. So all these taken together accomplish all the functions of the body. In the Mahanarayana Upanishad, we also find a message. It says, Sapta prana prabhavanti tasmaat sapta chishas samidhas sapta jitvaha. There, Sapta prana, actually the word prana means vital force only. The Sapta, he says, because he has taken 2 upapranas and assumes that the other 3 are subsumed into these 2, and he makes it as Sapta. Why Sapta? There the answer of the Vyakhyakas would be, because we find such explanations in other places. If we apply the same thing here, it would be that it is the sweet will of the Rishi at the time of realization. He mentioned Sapta. He could have also mentioned Dasha. That is not an issue. Mahanarayana, we find one more place where prana is discussed. Here, the Rishi says the act of consuming food also has to be practiced in a sublime way. What is that? It says, Shraddhaya prane nivishto mritanjuhomi. While eating food, this is the method that has been presented in the Upanishads. Many times, people just gulp down some food and run for some other work. But the Upanishadic view is not that. Upanishad says that food is God. So, with full respect, accept that, or better said, offer that food, the God, into the God who is inside your system. That is the yajna drishti that has been presented in Mahanarayana Upanishad, which comes in the Krishna Yajurveda Aranyaka. Just before Taittiriya Upanishad, we have Mahanarayana Upanishad. Shraddhayam prane nivishto mritan juhomi. With Shraddha, that is religious faith. It is very hard to translate this word. I am just making a loose translation here. Swamiji said that Shraddha cannot be translated into English at all. But some word we need to go on. So let us say that religious faith, firm in religious faith, I offer this oblation of ambrosia, amritam, nectar, nectarine thing, into prana with reverence. Nivishtaha. Nivishtaha is the word which brings out that sense of reverence. Because the Bhashyakara, the Vyakhyakas, they say Adara Yuktaha. Nivishtaha means Adara Yuktaha. What is this Amritam? Whatever the food particle is being consumed is considered as Amritam. We should not, or we should never should be criticize food. Annam na nindya, annam na parichakshita, annam bahupurvita. Like this, there are 4 vratas which are mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanishad, 3rd book, Bhrigu. So here in Mahanarayana Upanishad, the food is considered as Amritam. Shraddhaya prani nivishto mritan juhomi. Like this, he mentions it for Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. And at the end, he says, Brahmani ma atma mritatvaya. What does it mean? There Sayanacharya says, Etabhihi panchabhihi ahutibhihi amritatvaya mokshaya me madiyaha atma jivaha brahmani paramatmani eki bhavatu iti sheshaha. Eating the food one after the other morsel, taking one after the other morsel, it is not, we are not relishing the food. These words, relish, delicious, and take pleasure in, indulge in, all these words lose their meaning in the Upanishadic context, where food is considered as God itself. And then it says, Sayanacharya says that very nicely. He says, by these oblations, it is not morsels, they are considered as oblations. May myself be united with the Supreme, so that I may attain immortality. This is the idea of prana that is presented in the Mahanarayana Upanishad. Then it says, Amritopastaranamasi. Here, Upastarana is this, something like a bed sheet, you may say. Oh, water. Amrita is water here. Oh, water, you are the spread out seat of Anna Brahman, the immortal Brahman. Why is water called as Amrita? Because it is such, it sustains life. That is why in the classical Sanskrit language also, water is called as Amritam. It is known as Jivanam also. Bharatwarashi says Jivanam, Bhuvanam, Vanam. That is the different thing. So he says, the Rishi of Mahanarayana Upanishad says, you are the spread out seat of Anna Brahman, the immortal food. Why is it necessary? The Sayanacharya, the Acharya, is a great Acharya who commented on all the 4 Vedas. He says, He Piyamana Jala Tvam Amrita Vinasha Rahita Prana Devataya Upastaranam. Asi, Upastaranam means is a bedsheet like thing. Yatha Shayanasya Purushasya Manchakasya Upari Tula Patadikam Upastiryate Tadvat Prana Devataya idam Upastaranam. And the words of Sayanacharya is very much in line with the Vedic message, because in the Madhyandina Shakha, the Vajasaniya Samhita, that is the Shukla Yajurveda, we find that Tasmad Asishyan Achame Dashitva Achame Etadeva Tadannam Anagnam Kurute. Nagnam means nude, naked. Anagnam means it becomes covered. The annam has to be covered in the beginning before taking Ashishyan Achame, before taking, and then Ashitva Achame. Like this it is said. Here, what we say is, with the Shraddha, the food is offered in Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana, and Dhyana. By this, what will happen? Say, Shivo Ma Visha Pradahaya. Shraddhayam Prane Nivishtomritan Juhomi Shivo Ma Visha Pradahaya Pranaya Swaha, etc. Again, Sayanacharya says, Puyamana he dravya vishesha tvam shiva shanto bhutva mam pravisha kimatham apradahaya. Daha means burning, apradahaya shut sampadita daha shantyarthaha kincha puyamana dravyam pranadevatayai swaha sugutam astu. Like this, it goes on. There is still more. There are many mantras in this context that can be studied later. Those who are interested may refer to the Mahanarayana Upanishad. Here, the message that we get is prana, apana, etc., the functions of the prana. They are all appeased by offering food in the light of a yajna. The God himself is being offered into the prana, which is also, or the agni in the stomach, which is also considered as God. That is why in the Gita we find Brahmarpanam Brahma. Then it says it is Hutam. The Hutam is also Brahman. Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam. Then Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. One thing we have to remember here, anything that is performed with a sublime attitude, the divine attitude, will yield divine result. This is the Indian scheme of knowledge, Indian scheme of life, which is actually mentioned in scriptures. It says, Samyak Sravanti Sarito Nadhena Antarhrida Manasa Puyamana Ete Arshanti Urmayo Gritasya Mrida Iva Kshipano Rishamana. It is said in a different context, but there we find that Saritaha Nadhenaha Prina Yitriyaha Nadyaha Iva Pravishantu Gritasya Dharaha, that which is offered in the Yajna, the ghee that is offered in the Yajna. There he says Manasa Puyamanaha. That is very important. Manasa Puyamanaha. That which is purified by the proper attitude. This is important. Then the very act of pranayama, which is discussed in the yogic texts, can become the highest practice that can lead to the highest realization. Like this, we find it in many places. Then in Bhagavad Gita, we have one more message which we have to, which we can remember here. In the 4th chapter, Apane Jukvati Pranam Prane Panan Tatha Pare Pranapanagati Ruddha Pranayama Parayana. Shri Krishna gives a rightful place for those who are engaged in pranayama practices. He says, constantly practicing control of the vital forces by stopping the movements of the outgoing and the incoming breaths. Some offer as a sacrifice the outgoing breath in the incoming breath, while still others incoming breath in the outgoing breath. Shankaracharya says, Apana vrittau juhvati prakshipanti pranam pranavrittim Purakakhyam pranayamam kurvanti ityarthaha. Prane apanam tatha apare juhvati. Rechakakhyam cha pranayamam kurvanti ityarthaha. Pranapana gati mukhanasikaabhyam vayova nirgamanam pranasya gatihi. Tad viparyayena adhogamanam apanasya gatihi. Te pranapana gati ete rudva niruddha pranayama parayanaha pranayama tatparaha kumbhakakhyam pranayamam kurvanti ityarthaha. It means pranayama parayana, constantly practicing control of the vital forces. That is, they practice a form of pranayama called kumbhaka, stopping the breath either inside or outside. Either inside means the breath has to be stopped inside. After inhaling, he withholds that. And then once he exhales, there he withholds that. That he does not allow the prana to enter inside. That is the Bhakya Kumbhaka. Prana apana gati rutva. By stopping the movements of the outgoing and the incoming breaths, the outgoing of breath exhalation through the mouth and the nostrils is the movement of the prana. Actually, in pranayama, mouth is kept closed. It is not open. But here Shankara includes that because there are certain pranayamas, certain exercises where exhalation is made through mouth also. Those who have studied the Hatha Yoga, etc., they know there is one such a pranayama known as Kaka pranayama, which the yogis who live in the areas which are very hot, they practice this so that the entire system becomes cool. In that, what they do is they make the mouth oval shape, the lips will be made oval shape, and the tongue will be extended a little outside. Not necessarily outside, it can be kept inside also. And the air is inhaled through the tongue, which is curved, which is made into a curve. By that, the entire system inside, it is like air conditioning. The water, the molecules, the water particles in the tongue, they make the air cool, and the cool air enters the system and cools the body. Like that, there are many things. So Shankara, by this we understand that Shankara was proficient in every science that is associated with spiritual illumination. So he says like that, through the mouth and the nostrils is the movement of the pranayama. As opposed to that, the movement of apana is the going down of breath. These constitute the pranapana gati, rudva, movements of the prana and apana. By stopping this, some juhvati means offer as a sacrifice, pranam, the outgoing breath, which is the function of prana, in the apana, which is the function of apana, that is the incoming breath. They practice this is a form of pranayama called as puraka, filling in. Tatha apare, still others offer apanam, the incoming breath, prani, in the outgoing breath. They practice a form of prana. This is the pranayama known as rechaka. Like this, it goes on. Gita has spoken like this. Upanishads have presented pranayama in different ways. These are the different dimensions we see in Vedanta. Ultimately, one will have to transcend the body consciousness and understand that and realize that is Brahman, that which is beyond the entire phenomenal existence. Obviously, a question may arise here. If ultimately Vedanta says that one will have to transcend this gross level of existence and realize that one is Brahman, the all-pervading existence absolute, knowledge absolute, and bliss absolute, then why does Vedanta discuss about this pranayama? And the upasanas, for example, Shraddhaya Am Prane Vishnu Vritanjuhomi, it is a type of upasana. Upasana wherein the everyday act of eating food also can be converted into a sadhana. Why does Vedanta speak of all these things? This question Bhagavan Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada Acharya, he himself raises this in the introduction to the Chandogya Upanishad. He says that Tani etani upasanani sattva shuddhi karatvena vastu tattva bhasakatvat advaita jnanopakara kani alambana vishayatvat sukha sadhyani cha iti purvam upanyasyante. Chandogyopanishad begins the Sadvidya in the 6th chapter. But before that, in the earlier portions, earlier chapters, several upasanas are mentioned. Many upasanas are mentioned. One of the upasana is this prana brahma upasana. There, before that, in the Shankaracharya, in the introduction, mentions like this. He says like this. It means, Shankara, the commentary means, these meditations that are such become helpful in non-dualistic realization by way of presenting a glimpse of the reality of Brahman through the purification of the mind, and they are easy to practice because they are based on some palpable object, alambana vishayatvat, and that is why they are easy to practice. Sukha sadhyani cha iti purvam upanyasyante. Hence, they are presented in the beginning of the Upanishads. This is what Bhagavan Sri Shankara says. Here we can remember one more thing. When such pranayama is prescribed as a upasana, it should be noted that, especially when the Gita says that apane jupati pranam, etc., it should be noted that it should be associated with that thought. If the thought is missing, then the pranayama cannot become an upasana. There is one more Acharya, Shankarananda Saraswati, who has commented on Bhagavad Gita. He highlights this point in his Bhashya on this shloka, apane jupati pranam. He says that it should be associated with the thought that it is the Brahman. If the thought is missing, it cannot become a upasana. Thus, in the Vedantic parlance, we see that pranayama is a means to realization, and then pranayama can be applied to the day-to-day life as an upasana. As we saw that Mahanarayana Upanishad says that act of consuming food can be a upasana. We can extend this further and apply this to normal breathing also. That is why the acharyas and the realized souls, they say that just breathing can become a sadhana. That is how the soham hamsaha, that concept also is taught. In Upanishads, in the minor Upanishads, we find this also. Thus, when we contemplate on the dimensions of pranayama in Vedanta, we see that every act of taking in the breath, giving out the breath, can become a means to the ultimate realization. I end this talk with a prayer to the Almighty that we may acquire strength to practice everything in our life as a means to the realization, spiritual illumination. May Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna bless us all with the necessary knowledge and strength to attain the ultimate reality. Jai Ramakrishna.
Pranam Maharaj, thank you for your talk. So if there are any questions, the audience can ask directly or can write on the chat box.
Swamiji, namaste. Swamiji, namaste Vayu Tameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. That Vayu is equal to prana?
Vayu is not equal to prana.
But namaste Vayu Tameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi.
Please once again.
Namaste Vayu Tameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi.
Yes.
Your face. The question is, can you show your face? We can see you.
Yes. There in the Shanno Mitra, the Shanti Mantra, it says Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. The Upanishad also, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also says Pranayama. Pranayama, it is prana alone. It says, but the word prana there means Brahman. And here, when we say that Vayu is Pratyaksha Brahma, we can remember what Varuna said to his son Varuni. He said, Anna itself is Brahman. He first taught that. Once he realized that Annam is Brahman, later on he went a little deep inside and realized that there is a subtler force which controls this food, and then realized it as prana. In the same way, when we say it is Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi, it is in that state it is considered as Brahman, because the very concept of Vayu itself falls within the phenomenal world, and Brahman is not inside this phenomenal world. Brahman means our own real self is not inside this phenomenal world. So it should be taken as a secondary usage.
So I have something to say on this. It's a very interesting question which was raised. Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. You should refer it to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Very interesting question is asked. Yagyavallakya is questioned, can you talk about that Vayu and that Sutratma? Vayu here is a Sutratma, which is the Hiranyagarbha, and the Hiranyagarbha is Svagana Brahman and is identical with Brahman. It is not the prana, which is the Pancha Prana, or Annamaya Pranamaya Manomaya Vijnanamaya Anandamaya. It is not that prana. Because this Vayu here is the Sutratma. Immediately you can refer to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where can you talk about that Vayu? And do you know that Antaryami is called Antaryami Brahmana? There's an elaborate discussion of this, and the Shankara's Bhashya, as well as the Ramanuja's Bhashya, in which he says the Antaratma, which is pervading everything, and which is subsuming and entering into everything. There is one Madhyandana Shakha, where he says, Ya Atmani Tishtan. He is in the earth, and he pervades the earth, and the earth does not know. It goes on like that. And he says he is in the Atman, which is the Jivatman in the body of all beings, and pervades the Jivatman, and the Jivatman does not know. That means he is the soul of the soul. That idea, which is the Vishishtadvaidik idea, which the Upanishad supports in the Madhyandana Shakha, that Ramanuja takes it. So this Vayu, because of the clear statement, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. So this cannot be interpreted in any other way. So it clearly means this is the Vayu, here the Sutratma. Sutratma is the Hiranyagarbha. And interestingly, Hiranyagarbha is also called Prana in Vedanta. In Vedanta, the word Prana is also used for Hiranyagarbha. And the Hiranyagarbha is the Mahat of the Sankhya. And the Sankhyan Mahat, the Hiranyagarbha, is only just below the Avyakta. In the Kathopanishad Bhashya, Shankara says, Avyaktat Prathamam Jadam Hiranyagarbham Tattvam, when it talks about the Mahat. The Hiranyagarbha Tattva is actually the Saguna, equal to Saguna Brahman, and Shankaracharya does not distinguish between the Saguna and Nirguna Brahman. In that, it is in this sense, perhaps, this should be interpreted. Not in the sense of prana, which is the Annamaya Pranamaya.
Pranam Maharaj.
So Maharaj, there is a question on the chat box. It says, before taking food, we chant Gita 4.24. And during eating food, is it necessary to chant number
79.01.
79.1 and 79.3 of Mahanarayana Upanishad, which help in pranayama?
So evening, what is the right food?
During eating
Evening food.
during
Eating food.
If
So he
there-
talks, I think he talks about the Marmarpana Pranayama. And what is the brother Maharana 7 points of?
79, 1 and 79 we have checked. So when we say the Gita, the shloka, Brahmarpanam Brahma Havini, there actually the simple translation will be the ladle is Brahman, the oblation is Brahman, the offering is poured by Brahman in the fire of Brahman. Brahman alone is to be reached by him who has concentration on Brahman as the objective. This is the simple meaning of this shloka. Is it necessary to chant the shloka? Is what is the question here. It depends on the aspirant. Just now we have seen that Mahanarayana Upanishad says, Shraddhayam prane nivishtom ritan juhomi, etc. By that, the Upanishad has given a methodology to practice that eating food itself can be a Brahmopasana. So, chanting this shloka, it depends on the aspirant. Any shloka that you chant that cannot be directly related to food actually. And even if it is described in such a way, it depends on the attitude of the person who consumes the food by chanting the shloka.
What is the Maharana Sloka mantra?
Shraddhayam prane nivishto mritan juhomi. The series comes, the apane nivishto mritam samane jnane udani. But this 79.1, which mantra, if the questioner, if he can put what is the mantra, we can see that. The one which the Shraddhayam prane nivishto mritan juhomi is actually the 69th mantra that comes in the Andhra Patha, not in the shorter version.
I think Amritopastaranamasi, that's what is mentioned perhaps. Amritopastaranamasi, Swaha, we chant that before. Actually, Amritopastaranamasi, Amritavidhanamasi at the end,
Yes.
the commentary based on Shayana Bhashya given by Vimalanandaji. So before you take food, you sip a drop of water, and that forms a layer of amrita in the stomach. And after that, you eat food. At the end, amrita pidhanam asiswa. Pidhana means covering. Another layer of amrita by which you cover. Between these two layers of coverings, the food gets converted into amrita. That is the idea. That's why amritopastaranam asiswa. At the end, amrita pidhanam asiswa. Any other question? So if everybody is happy, then we can close the session with thanks to Swami Japasiddhananda ji. It's worked very hard because Vedanta and Pranayama is very difficult to relate. Shankara, unfortunately or fortunately, in the Brahma Sutra particularly, he says everything is Brahman, Akasha is Brahman, Prana is Brahman, then you have nothing to say. And when it comes to Upasana, he takes them because Upasana is based on mostly on the Mimamsa idea of Upasana, and the Ahuti idea is always brought in, just like in the case of the Gita.
Practical camp of
Huh?
practical camp of pranayama.
Practical?
Camp of pranayama.
Practical camp on pranayama that we will see later on. So with this we will, so he made a beautiful collection of so many passages, and he himself is a great scholar in Sanskrit, so he can access to the original. So all of you also should have some peep into this original Harshas with good translations available. So the next, tomorrow, this understanding of pranayama, this scientific mechanism of action by Dr. Hemant Bhargava. He is an MBBS MD doctor and MSc and PhD, assistant professor in NIMHANS in Bangalore, Department of Integrative Medicine. So once again, it's 6 to 7. All of you are welcome to join. So the valedictory session day after tomorrow will be Swami Sarvottamananda. So with this, we conclude our 2-week-long, 15-day long pranayama webinar. This time we focused only on pranayama because everybody talks about yoga in a very general way. Very successfully, we had so many speakers from various perspectives. We thank all of them. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna